Hello and welcome. I'm your host, Wim Lou. You are listening to the Raptors Reaction Podcast. As always, leave your questions in the comments. We'll try to get to them in the second half of the program. Okay, this is what we're going to do here tonight because there's a larger conversation, which everyone's having right now. It's about Scottie Barnes, its offense, what's going on. It's year 5. It doesn't look different. Let's have that conversation. I feel like I've been avoiding it for the first little bit of preseason. I wanted to see how it plays out. Let's talk about it because that's definitely the most important thing because, it wasn't a strong offensive game outside of like I would say, second shift of the game when he came out, then came back in end of the the second quarter. I thought he was good in that stretch, but outside of that, obviously struggled. But the other part I wanted to talk about was also just, damn, man, what a game winner. What a game winner. Back-to-back game winners for the Toronto Raptors in preseason. Last game, it was the sensational 27-point comeback against the Boston Celtics, which included an 18-2 run towards the end, where there was a stretch where Boston turned the ball over 7 times out of 9 possessions. So the Raptors were able to steal it there with a inbound play going to Jonathan Mobo, cutting back door, faking out of a screen and getting a catch, sealing his man, and then finishing a left-handed layup around the basket. That won the Raptors the game against Boston. And then 2 nights later, Darko Rajakovic, I think this actually was even better than the last one. The last one was really good. Nice surprise because it was kind of like, I detailed it. That one, Mobile caught the defense by surprise. He looks like he's going to set a screen for the shooter to catch the ball off the inbound, but instead he slips out and gets back door. This time, the Raptors, honestly, they kind of fully choked the game. Like, the Raptors didn't have a field goal for the last 5 minutes of the fourth quarter. They had, established a strong lead. Everything was going fine. And then all of a sudden they forget how to play basketball, very disorganized, and then they kept fouling on the other end too, or they were just giving. It looked like Marvin Bagley was like Jokic against the Raptors. Like that's how tough of a game it was. And the Raptors just kind of holding on, and then unfortunately the Raptors committed a foul with 0.8 seconds left. They tried to review it, they couldn't get the call back, and that gave Canadian rookie Will Riley out of Illinois a chance to go to the foul line, down 1 to put the Wizards up 2. He front rims the first one, but it bounces in, which is always good confidence because the second one you just got to put a little bit more arc. He knocked it down, and that gave Washington the advantage. The broadcast is talking about, look how ice cold this kid is. He's chilling in the bench, nonchalant because he just iced the game. But there was still 1 timeout left for the Raptors, even after the failed challenge, and also there was still 0.8 seconds on the clock. The Raptors draw up a play. Actually, credit to the Wizards broadcasting crew. I don't think the Raptors even sent one today, by the way. Like, damn, we're really cutting corners right now, man. We're not even sending broadcast crews. I mean, we used to do the thing where we keep a guy, especially if it's preseason, we used to keep a broadcast crew like in the building. We'll call it remote. We're not going to make Matt Devlin miss, Thanksgiving with his family here in Canada so that he goes down to Washington and call a preseason game. Like, no, forget that. But we'll at least call it from the studio, you know what I mean? In downtown Toronto. Nowadays, it's like we're not even sending a crew out there, man. We're just straight up just going to show you the Washington Wizards broadcast. But shout out to the Wizards broadcast. Actually, I didn't like it, to be honest, but I did like at the very end, I believe it was Drew Gooden. Shouts to Drew Gooden, longtime NBA player, who called the play on the inbound. As soon as they lined up, he was like, oh, they're going to throw it back door to Sarr for the Raptors. But obviously Sarr also, there's 2 Sarrs, they're brothers. Olivier Sarr plays for the Raptors, at least right now. Alex Sarr was the number 2 overall pick last year. He plays for the Wizards. Immediately, they were calling it out like, yo, it's going to be backdoor, a lob to Sarr. And that was really nice because they were able to execute the play. It was kind of like Sarr went to set a ball screen for a shooter. I think it was Elijah cutting to, because they were inbounding on the left side of the floor. So Elijah was cutting into the left corner on the perimeter there with the screen from Sarr. Then after the screen from Sarr, he turned around, got a screen from Chucky, which honestly wasn't even much of a screen. Like, it wasn't that much contact on the screen to create the play for Sarr. So Sarr really just had to roll and get downhill. And it was a really nice pass off the inbound. I believe Gerald Roden threw the pass. But it was a perfect play because Sarr was able to get behind his man, and he's obviously taller. He had a smaller guy on him. They lobbed it up to him, and Sarr was 0.8 seconds left, caught it midair, had the composure to finish it, and that was the game winner. They went to review it, but a really, really nice set of plays by Darko Rajakovic. First off, I know it's preseason for everybody, but one of the big things for me, I said it coming into the season was, is Darko ready to win? Okay, he's been hired as a developmental coach. He's given these guys infinite rope, infinite patience. The roster has changed so much around him. The freaking president of the team is even gone. Masai was here when he was hired. He said, I want to be Ujiri Jakovic. He's not even on the team anymore. So everything around him has changed, basically, except for, the one constant, which has been Scottie Barnes. And I suppose to a lesser degree, Grady Dick, which was also drafted in the same year Darko came in. But can Darko actually win games, especially in crunch times? Can he steal possessions? Can he manage the game? And I thought I got to give him a lot of credit because the last two plays, I know this is the third stringers versus third stringers, but that still takes some pretty good, just play calling and obviously execution by the players on the court, but even just play design by the coaching staff led by Darko to even get those two off. So credit to the Raptors for fighting back and salvaging these last two games. Because honestly, preseason is not supposed to be exciting. Preseason is supposed to be guys getting ready. Do they look physically right? Are they implementing anything new? Are they changing anything from the previous years? And that's what the focus should really be. Did anyone take a leap? Today, again, you come into this game, you get the alert on your phone. There's no Brandon Ingram, right? No issues. He's just not playing for the second game in a row. So no Brandon Ingram. No Jakob Poeltl. Hopefully he's getting better. Colin Murray-Boyles, as Michael Grange reported yesterday, he was not at practice, so he did not play. And hopefully he's okay because, he's had 2 injury scares now and I think 3 games played. So hopefully he's okay. Didn't play here tonight. Hopefully we'll see him later on in preseason. So yeah, like we kind of get the remainder of the team. And so, that's sort of what the focus should be on. More than anything else is sort of like the other guys who played. Credit to the Raptors for dropping the last second game winner. However, I got to say the fourth unit, pretty much outside of Chucky Hepburn, nobody really played well. And even down the stretch, Chucky was also not generating much. I mean, he's the point guard. It's kind of on him to get the team good offense. He had a lot of good kickouts to David Roddy, but David Roddy was just smoking every open three. If he makes one more of those open threes, the Raptors don't need the game winner, but whatever. It all worked out in the end. So let's talk about the players that really do matter, towards the winning in this season. I'm not trying to dismiss them, but, towards the actual rotation. And of course, we got to start with Scottie Barnes, who seen a lot of conversation online about Scottie Barnes. Started this game very poorly, was largely just shooting threes that, were short, were long. None of them even came really particularly. They didn't even look like they were going to go in. I would say there were maybe 1 or 2 of the 3 were like in rhythm, but it just didn't feel like there were necessary threes. Certainly if you're looking at this season, the focus for Scottie it's been outlined by the team. It's been outlined by Darko. It's been outlined by Bobby. Actually, I really like that it's been outlined by the head of basketball operations in Bobby Webster, who takes over after Masai's gone. I felt like Masai didn't necessarily outline clear, definitive, guidelines for what he wants out of the players. Of course, that's largely in the realm of the head coach, and I don't necessarily want the president of the team or head of basketball operation coaching the team. But at the same time, I think that it is pretty informative, the way that he detailed the outline of what he wants out of Scottie's game. In any case, even in the bigger picture, the difference between this season as compared to the last 2 seasons where, Scottie's had the ultimate green light to try whatever he wants offensively. If he, in last season, for example, and I refer to this game a lot, but there was a game the Raptors played. I think he shot 13 threes. It was like 2 of 13 from 3. I went down to practice the next day, asked Darko, Scottie's been shooting a lot more threes. Do you like that? And he's like, actually, I want him to shoot even more threes. So it's like the ultimate green light to try sort of whatever you want. However, obviously, he wasn't efficient in those 2 seasons. And the premise or general premise was like, okay, these are 2 developmental seasons anyway. So let's let him try whatever you need, right? It's like a buffet. Like you go out there, you're like, okay, I'm going to, sample a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this. And hopefully by the 3rd time you go back to the buffet, you're like, you have a pretty solid roster. Okay, I'm only going to take my favorites, the stuff that really hits, right? So that was kind of the hope. Okay, the last 2 seasons, we're developing, we're trying stuff. let's get it done. But this year, obviously, the talk has been playoffs, right? Led by Scottie, who first initiated the playoffs talk last year at the end of the season press conference. That's backed up by Brandon Ingram, who talked about it at Summer League. And of course, the players all iterated, at least the leaders of the team, all iterated how much they want to win and how much playoffs is the goal. So with that, obviously means, okay, the games are no longer inconsequential. The games are no longer experimental. The games are no longer fungible. Okay, we're not even trying to actively lose games, which obviously the front office is trying to get them to do last year. They wanted to look at this season as, okay, we've brought in a new first option. I mean, Brandon Ingram's only played 2 games in preseason, but I think everyone who's watched him so far can agree that the skill level that he brings is at a higher level offensively, particularly with his scoring, than all the other guys, which means he's going to be the first option. That doesn't mean he's going to have the ball all the time. We're not going to run the Luka offense for him. We're not running the James Harden offense. We're still running the Darko Rajakovic offense, which means everyone shares the ball. They're going to, they'll got him coming off his screen, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, he's probably going to lead the team in shot attempts. And quite frankly, he's got the skill level to justify that. That, of course, leads a new situation for what Scottie's going to be doing. The first game against Denver, if you go back and listen to that episode, basically was like, I don't even want to talk about this because first off, I want to give it a little bit more time, but also I can already see like the people jumping in of like, what is going on? Like it was just a strong negative reaction. It was like the offensive process isn't good. He's shooting poor jumpers. He's not making them either. And so, you already seen people sort of jump ahead. Like, let's move off of him, or the max contract's kicking in, this and this and this. I was like, look, this is one preseason game. Don't want to necessarily look at it. Second preseason game, okay, let's approach it because this game, the process for Scottie wasn't strong. He goes 3 of 11 from the field offensively, 0 of 3 from 3, gets 4 of 4 from the foul line, which was good. Actually, that was during that stretch, like I mentioned, where his first shift was bad. He missed the first 3 threes. He tossed a pass out of bounds that was like 5 feet over Immanuel Quickley's head. I think there was a real chance to outlet that ball, but that pass went like way into the stands. But the second shift was really good, and I actually really appreciate how much he bounced back. That was actually the main reason why Scottie ended this game with a game-high plus 22, was in that stretch. I thought he was doing everything right. And, what I saw from that stretch was, obviously, offensively, he was able to score 4 times in that stretch. Twice he was able to hit mid-range jumpers. Twice he was able to get fouled, once from the mid-range, once, I think, around the basket. In that stretch, he also got an offensive rebound, kicked it out to Immanuel Quickley for a 3. He also was occupying that mid-range area, was looking to attack. The defense was converging on him. Honestly, a bit of a mistake by the defense. But ultimately, Scottie's able to keep his dribble alive and then toss a dime backdoor to Sandro Mamukelashvili. Those were all good plays offensively. And then defensively, that's where I thought Scottie was excellent. Getting a lot of steals, getting a lot of deflections, forcing pressure, the intensity. He played mad, which I thought was kind of informative because, I like that he was frustrated with not just the way he came out the game, but even as the leader, he's the leader of the team. So if he comes out lackadaisical, looking to settle for threes, missing shots, throwing passes out of bounds, that's going to carry over to the rest of the team as well, because again, the team's going to take after the leader. So I like that he came back in the second shift with a higher sense of urgency, pushed the pace, was able to, threw a lot of outlet passes too, a lot of sequences where he got the rebound and threw it up ahead. And even though he wasn't going to get the assist for those, but that created that pass where once you advance it pass and you throw it up ahead, now it's a 3-on-1, now it's a 3-on-2. Now your teammates have an advantage to sort of play off of in that transition period. Those are all really good things. And then, as the game went on, he tailed back into sort of the bad offensive process, which was getting into post, but then settling for turnaround jumpers against like CJ McCollum. And that was like an air ball, or like a posting up Chris Middleton and then fading away. I think there's always going to be like, because he does so many different things, there's always going to be this frustration because it's like, I think a lot of people, there's probably, if I had to generally broadcast or just categorize it, there's probably 2 camps. Okay, there's definitely one camp that's just like, we want Scottie to be as aggressive as possible, like as a free throw line and in player. So he's gonna catch the ball. He's gonna be a finisher. He's gonna be a roller. He's gonna be on the offensive glass. He's gonna be driving and just try to play through that contact and attack and initiate as much as possible. To be honest, I'm actually kind of part of that group because the most success that we have seen in terms of his, well, actually I guess he's had two really standout periods. I think his rookie season was certainly a standout period. And in that one, he definitely was more fearless, playing around the basket, just like, using his physicality and just like pushing guys around. Like that was really, really fun. Um, the the other period that he's been really successful will be the start of his third season, where the start of that season was really good for him. He was really good from the catch and shoot threes as well. I mean, that was the game. That was the year where obviously he parlayed that into the All-Star appearance. That year, Trae Young was named to the All-Star game. He got injured. They remained the replacement. Scottie went in the game, I believe, if I remember correctly. But he played at a really good level. And so those are the two strongest periods. I think the more difficult parts where you've seen from Scottie is when he's tried to play that sort of like point guard, wing type of player where it's going to be perimeter and in. That has just not worked, and there's not a lot of evidence of that style of play working for him. The thing is, the playmaking, like in terms of passing and stuff, like he's a good passer pretty much from most instances. I would say he's the best at transition out of his passing. He's definitely the best in transition passing. But we've seen him operate as a big, short roll passing. He's quite good at that. On the perimeter, he knows obviously where to get the ball to guys, and he's throwing good passes out there. The main issue I have is just he doesn't have the perimeter skills necessary to be a threat there, and so it doesn't lead to very efficient playmaking processes. You see a lot of like, okay, first off, if you're going to play on the perimeter, ideally you're going to shoot, right? Like if you're a threat to shoot, guys have to guard up a little closer against you. When you use the screen, they're going to try to go over the screen rather than go under the screen. There's more space for you to drive in that instance because guys are so tight to you that it's easier to beat them without them having the space to to recover and cut you off. And then the second part is, what's the handle looking like? Is there like the ability to sort of, keep the ball on the string, read and shift defenders, keep them off balance? And even if you're not the strongest shooter, you can still be a really strong driver simply by having a strong handle and the ability to sort of read and sort of shift a guy and like open up their hips and sort of drive a gap and stuff like that. I would say those two aspects are never been strong points for what Scottie does. He's never been a strong outside shooter. And honestly, I've wished the handle would get tighter, but you still look at now. There's like, it's still, it's sometimes it gets loose. He's certainly not a bad ball handler, but if you're talking about breaking down a defense from a standstill position off a screen, that's again not his strengths. And so I think the difficult thing is just like if we're going into year 5, expecting him to sort of be point guard, expecting him to be on the wing, that's going to be consistent frustration because we're going to continue to see not just mixed results, but honestly more likely poor results. Because again, coming back from another off season, it's not like he's magically like corrected or like instantly become a different sort of player in terms of what they handle with the outside shooting. To be honest, most players don't. I think maybe the expectation here in Toronto is that we've had like DeMar, we've had Pascal, guys who are like clearly built their game from like a pretty humble place to like a pretty advanced place. And so we're like, okay, we're used to like this idea of like a year after year, something new is going to pop in. That's not the norm. That's the exception. The norm, honestly, it's like the same. You're seeing with the rest of the roster. Like it's, when I look at Jacoby, for example, coming in year over year with an offseason, it's not like there's something significantly different. When I look at Grady coming in year over year, I don't see anything significantly different. I just see a stronger player, more physically adept. But the thing is, like, it's hard for Scottie to get stronger because he's already been strong. Like, the guy's been fully grown ever since he came in. So, like, that's, like, the standard. It's not just, like, for Scottie. Like, that's just the norm. Like, it's the exception when guys sort of come in with, like, brand new things, and it's like this pop, this pop, this pop. And again, like, I'm not saying that can't happen over the rest of the preseason, but, I think it's just sort of like finding the right role, right? Because I think in previous seasons, we're okay trying things out. It's not even worth it necessarily to have a big discussion about, hey, is he doing an inefficient thing? Because it's like, well, at the end of the day, we're developing, right? So, we might as well try it out, see, maybe something pops. I thought last year the mid-range game certainly showed good improvements. And he was able to sort of get his own offense from the mid-range in a decent way as well. So it was like, okay, that was promising. And you saw a little bit of that translate here over to that was what he's successful in today on offense. But again, like if the process is he's going to be on the perimeter, breaking down defenses, getting pick and rolls, those things have just not been particularly strong for him, which obviously begs the question, where does this lead him? Because you also now have Brandon, again, if they're healthy, Brandon's going to be that guy who's going to initiate a lot of offense for them. IQ's going to initiate some offense for them. RJ has never been not prominent in the offense. It's the offense doesn't necessarily like try to tilt in RJ's favor, but RJ is just in the right spots to score on the top of the floor where he's shooting catch and shoot threes, when he's attacking closeouts, driving downhill, when he's transition. So he's kind of like naturally a finisher. Granted, I don't even think RJ played well today. He was unable to finish a lot of his drives. That was kind of the problem the last 2 games. So it's like, that's all said and aside. But I mean, again, naturally, like RJ could be in a game. Like RJ could play for the Lakers with LeBron and Luka, and he'd probably still get 15 shots up. Largely just because he's just, the mentality is there to score, and he's just kind of in the right places. Like he's just, I don't know, he's kind of had a lifetime of experience, not just in the NBA, but even before that as a scorer. So the instincts are sort of like just habitual. They're instincts rather than sort of like their practiced habits even. So it's like the question is like, okay, where does that leave Scottie? I don't think that leaves him in a bad place. I think it's just like he clearly can still be a great player around the basket. He can clearly, we're not even talking about the defensive side of the floor, which obviously tonight I thought he was great defensively. Like I genuinely don't have many complaints at all. I just only have compliments for how he played on the defensive end. He set the tone. It was great. One play, the Wizards called timeout because the Raptors are on a run. After the timeout, they were trying to bring the ball up, and Scottie was like chasing Bob Carrington from behind. Immanuel Quickley, who I think has certainly worked on being more of an active defender. I think he's trying a lot more. You're seeing him draw moving screen fouls pretty consistently once a game. That's new, right? That's new from him in terms of the effort and the dedication at the defensive end. And those 2 guys combined were able to force Bob Carrington to a turnover right away after Washington called a timeout. Like those are the stuff that's like really, really good from like, a defensive point of view. So I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about the offensive role. But why can't he still do all the other stuff? And you know what? I think this is why partially I don't fully want to have this conversation, or I didn't want to have it before. It's because people are kind of established in that camp of like, he's a point guard, he's like a ball dominant, like he's going to be this sort of like, what Zach Lowe calls like, apex predator wing player, those like the Tatum types, even the Cade Cunningham types, you know what I mean? Like the big ball handler, lead ball handler guy who can create offense at 3 levels. Or it's sort of like this like utility plus guy, which doesn't sound as glamorous, but can be much more efficient. But like around the basket, defending, hustling, screening, all these other secondary things, I think those can be pretty good. But like basically, if you want to broadly break it down, like guard or even forward, right? And yeah, like I think that there's proof of concept of that working, because that was the first thing he did in the NBA. Like before he even had 4 off seasons to improve his game, before the team has been, he's had 4 seasons to get acclimated to obviously playing NBA basketball. And by the way, playing good NBA basketball with that stretch too. Like, let's not pretend like this is just like we're talking about a brand new rookie here. We're like, what can we expect? Like, we know what we can expect. He's like, the first thing that he did was fit in and do a really good job playing off of other players. So I'm always confident that he has it within himself. The one question I do ask myself is, okay, if you're going to put it in his shoes, it is a pretty big change. Okay. Like imagine, like take yourself out of the NBA context, put yourself in like a work context. For 4 years, the team has only ever said, we want more out of you. We want you to try whatever you want. You know what? If there's sort of people who do the same thing in your department, we're going to get rid of the people in the department and we're going to promote you. And you're just going to give carte blanche to try your ideas. When you pitch it to the board, you get a green lit. And of course, you also get, bonuses and raises in your salary, right? So you're like, okay, this is sweet. This is a great workplace, whatever. And then comes 1 year and they're like, hey, by the way, I know what we did the last couple of years, but we've actually brought in someone else. And now we're going to encourage that person more than you, especially on the offensive end. We still have a big role for you. We still want you to do this, this, and this. But largely speaking, the deal kind of changed. And so I think there probably is a moment where he has to sort of like figure out and almost adapt. Okay, it's like, maybe if you look at Scottie, he's insisted that he's a point guard. He's insisted that this is a style of play that he wants to play at. This is the goal that he has in mind. But and prior to this, the organization, his employer, the team has always said, yes, we want to encourage you. We want to push you in this direction. But at the same time, is that now serving the goal? Because the goal changed. The last couple of years, the goal has been, let's give most of these players as many opportunities as possible to try it. It doesn't really matter if you win. This year, it matters if you win. We just saw the president of the company let go, shown out the door, right? That already puts urgency on everybody else, no matter what. Because now you have new management. And as much as Bobby was around for the previous things, he also said in his introductory press conference, in his new role as head of basketball operations, we're not afraid to make changes. So, okay, let's see how that goes. They're not partial to sort of the old structure necessarily. And so in that sense, it's like, can you sort of fit in with the rest of it? Again, ability-wise, my answer is absolutely. Like, absolutely, Scottie can be a very, very good player. Can even be an all-star level player, depending on how much winning the Raptors do as a group. As like a 17, 18 points per game guy, largely taking shots from the free throw line and in, getting offensive rebounds, like, you know, the physicality, you know, bumping guys around the basket, you know, getting out in transition, the playmaking, whether he's on the ball or off the ball. Like, you know, I think, again, he's a very good passer. You know, can he get better as a cutter? Can he get better as a roller? Even just more comfortable, Chris, because a lot of those things is just really just working on the timing with your teammates. They're very more coordinated. And then that will to just, like, you know, keep getting downhill. If you catch it on the block, or if you catch it on the baseline against CJ McCollum, are you backing him down and then fading away for the turnaround jumper? Or are you facing him up, taking a couple hard dribbles, pushing him a couple more steps closer to the basket, and then going up and seeing if they'll foul you? You know what I mean? Like, that's just like, you know, that's I think that, honestly, when we're talking about margins of the game and process, I think that's what needs to be there. You can't tell me with a straight face that he can't do those things. But again, it is going to be a big adjustment. This is the number one thing that I've been interested about ever since the Raptors came back this season, is the tone in terms of what the team has said is different than previous years. And just to illustrate this point, I'm gonna show you two things from the same interview where Bobby Webster was talking about how he envisions, you know, this team and the roles. And I want you to hear the first clip that he talks about Brandon Ingram, okay?
Stops with Scottie and Brandon. You have two all-star caliber wings. Scottie always says that I like to pass. Brandon likes to score. With someone like Brandon, reminds me of DeMar and Pascal and Kawhi, some of those guys. Every single day they're in the gym. Guys like him, they can work on every single move. They have every move in the bag. They have every shot release. The amount of work and the skill level to me stands out at his size. It starts in...
Okay, right? So, again, draws comparisons to the past, who are all number one options, right, for this team at one point or another. DeMar, Kawhi, Pascal, right? And has the ability to make every shot in the book. The work ethic's really good too. That's all good to hear. But that's sort of how he talked about it. When in the same interview, he goes on to talk about Scottie Barnes. Actually, right afterwards.
Scottie's in year 5. I think he's maturing. I think probably even those who've been around him from the media point of view, he's growing up. I think expectation obviously comes with that, the contract expectations, and he knows that. And so how does he block that noise out? How does he lead the team? I always tell him the baseline for him is his energy, his defense, his rebounding, his leadership.
There you go. The baseline for him is the defense, the energy, the leadership, and the rebounding. And like, it's just, they're spoken about differently. You know what I mean? And like, that's, and again, like, this doesn't have to be a catastrophe. This should just be completely fine because it's normal. To be honest, I think for the most part, I want every player to do what they do best for the team. And I think that should be what it means to be a winning organization, right? Like, the last couple of years, developmentally, you can change that. You can kind of play around with it. It's like, okay, maybe he's not the best, but we'll just give him like more chances. You know what I mean? But like, if the goal is truly winning this year, everybody has to do what they do best in terms of winning for this team. And that, of course, changes from player to player. For Quickley, obviously wants to be a pick and roll point guard. Not the strongest pick and roll player, especially not with Jakob not in the game. So it's like, okay, we need you to be better on the ball defensively, and we need you to be shooting a lot of threes. I thought Quickley has done that pretty well in this preseason. Hasn't really shined, hasn't popped off numbers wise. We're not giving Immanuel Quickley the number one star. We're not like, look, Quickley, he's a star point guard. But he's doing what is asked of him, like all preseason, right? He's been giving way more defensive pressure than I guess that he's shown previously. Hopefully that translates to the regular season. But the approach is right. The intent is right. Today he shoots 10 threes in 24 minutes. That's what they want from him. Those are all great, right? What they want on RJ Barrett. Okay, so obviously when he is in the game without Brandon Ingram, he's had to generate more of his own offense. And so you've seen the inefficiency. We know based on last season, RJ Barrett's not an on-ball creator. But when he's played with Brandon in the first 2 games, what have we seen from RJ? Playing off the catch, whether that's catch and shoot 3 or like attacking closeouts and getting to the rim or in transition. Those are the things that he's efficient at. They're trying to make him do those things. He's doing those things, unless obviously he's now asked to sort of pinch hit at point guard. And so everybody's got a little role and everyone's got to play in that role. And I think beyond that, that's fine, right? And so I just hope that I can hope this. I think it'll probably become the dominant conversation. I think Bobby even alludes to that in terms of obviously the max contract kicked in. How do you handle the outside conversation, the pressures about it? I guess he's even anticipating it. But like realistically, what I don't want this season to be is about crashing out about, oh my God, is Scottie in the right role? Is Scottie in the wrong role? His role has been pretty clearly set for him. They want him to play free throw line and in and dominate from there. And obviously if he plays outside of that, he better be making the shots because that's no longer part of his role to just like create so much from the perimeter and try out a bunch of threes or try out a mid-range. And then we come in this podcast and we're like, hey, like it was experimental. Like, no, man, like this year's, this year's about winning, right? And I think, by the way, Scottie did, honestly, I would argue more things towards winning in this game, especially on the defensive end, than anybody else on the team because he's that good and he's that talented. So it's just how he does it that we're going to argue about it game after game. Again, I can't believe we're already here after 2 games, but this is, I try not to have the conversations that only interest me. I try to have the conversations that I see everyone else having. This is number one conversation out of this game, which is kind of funny because it is game 2 of preseason for him, and it is obviously just preseason in general. But there, that's what we had it. Let's take a quick break. We'd love to hear your comments and your questions, and yeah, hand out 3 stars, and then I can eventually go home and see my family, man, because it is also Thanksgiving, you guys.
This show is brought to you by Simply Spiked. Will, I know summer's over, but you are not done with Simply Spiked, are you?
No, absolutely. This is my preferred drink of choice, as you know.
What do you prefer? What is your favorite flavor? Is it the lemonade? Is it peach? Is it limeade?
Number 1 is actually the blueberry, which I tried looking around my house. I don't even have anymore.
Well, good to know. It's not even anything I listed there. Hello and welcome, fans. If you're not sure what flavor you want to get yourself a variety pack so you can try each flavor. It really is the ideal drink for any occasion, from hanging with your friends to catching this upcoming Toronto Raptors season. Nothing will get you feeling refreshed and ready for the season like Simply Spiked. Fall is approaching, but there's no need for pumpkin spice when you got Simply Spiked.
Oh, very good. But no.
Thank you. I know this is an ad, but Will, you really love your Simply Spiked.
Absolutely is not a joke. I'm not kidding.
Pick up Simply Spiked at your local liquor store for your next hangout. Must be legal drinking age. Celebrate responsibly.
Okay, we're back. We are going to take your questions. I'm currently still scrolling through some of them, so just give me a little bit of time as I go through some of the ones that you've seen. Also, there's other players on the team to talk about, which, I certainly would like to get the chance to talk about, but, it is what it is, you know what I mean? And I don't mind talking about some of the other guys as well, because there's some interesting storylines to track there. Yeah, so let's just keep getting a couple more questions. Okay, everyone's crashing out. Honestly, I mean, I suppose that's not surprising. Okay, fair enough. I guess I set the tone on the show too sometimes. Number 1, yeah, we love Scottie. The bar is just so high. Absolutely. Definitely agree with that comment because, like, I genuinely think he's gonna have the most impact on winning this season on the team. And like I mean, that's also what the team thinks, by the way. He gets to pay the most salary at everybody. But I think that's the level that he's at. I think the difficulty is, and this is why I think if I don't know. I mean, you must have had to listen to multiple seasons of sort of just the show. But even in the previous seasons, like I didn't really like how much they were like not putting him on a pedestal, but like because there's like a difference between like being excited for a guy and reasonably so. Everyone's been excited about Scottie. I've definitely been very excited about Scottie, many times. Like the putting on the pedestal thing is just like okay, it also leaves like okay, if he doesn't hit this bar, then it becomes like really difficult for people to accept what he is because objectively he brings a ton to the table, but now it's like if he's not better than Pascal Siakam, who got traded because of because obviously positional overlap with Scottie, then it didn't work out, or like there's a chance to trade him for KD or two, even though it's not as simple as straight up 1-for-1, but it's like if he's not as good as KD, then it's then you can't enjoy him. Like a big thing is in life is just not trying to let expectations hurt your feelings. Like if you can't enjoy how much he does for the team, simply because the expectations are so strong or because people are so entrenched and they only ever want to talk about, their position of he's a superstar or like he's not the superstar. Like it just takes the fun out of it. Cause like very few people are that binary, you know what I mean? And there you go. So this one, I like this. I love from SW. I love that Quickley was so aggressive with the threes. Scottie seems to want to be a mid-range demon this year. Get in the paint, Scottie. Okay, I'm gonna put the Scottie part apart because I do agree. Obviously, you would prefer him to be in the paint more. I don't even mind some of the mid-range. Like clearly, he's gotten better at it. And I also think that too. It's just like basketball more than anything else because it's like so different from like a sport like baseball, for example. Which obviously, let's go Blue Jays. Very nervous for about 3 hours from now. But like basketball's so different because you need like not just you need the skill, but you need the imagination in basketball. Kind of like in soccer, like it's not as simple as like, oh, I'm gonna choose to shoot more mid-rangers or I'm gonna choose to shoot more threes. Actually, I guess threes may be the one thing you could choose to shoot more of because you could just chuck them up, or like you could choose to shoot more free throws. You could choose to shoot more layups. Like you need the creativity. Like there's so much that goes into it. Like it becomes all flattened out when you see a box score when it says like 3 of 11 from the field, 0 of 3 from 3. That's what it says on the box score. But like in terms of how to get to those spots, there has to be a creativity. You have to create a gap. You have to shift the guy. Are you on balance? Is it the right time? The shot clock? What's your teammate saying? What's the length of the defender in front of you? What's the height of the defender in front of you? What's the quickness in there? What's the help defense under the basket? There's like a million different things that influence a shot attempt. And even though I hate that in the box score, it gets reduced to 3 of 11, as if it's like Scottie Barnes is like Vladdy going to the plate, swinging the bat against pitchers, and 3 times he got a hit in 11 out of 11 plate appearances. Like they're just fundamentally different like sports. And I think basketball is so nuanced in terms of how you get to those shots. So again, like whatever, like yes, I definitely I agree. He should play more in the paint, but also at the same time, the paint might not be available. And if so, I actually don't mind Scottie taking a couple of mid-range because he's much more comfortable there. But the Quickley part, absolutely. I've enjoyed Quickley's process. The results haven't been necessarily that strong just yet. Tonight, he was actually quite good in terms of just overall output. He got hot in the start of the third quarter. He made 3 straight threes. And there was just zero hesitation on those threes. Finishing wise, he hasn't been finishing very strong in this season. One thing you notice about Quickley is because of his and again, even though he's come back physically stronger, Jamal Shadow's talking about it in training camp how IQ is like the fittest guy on the team, and honestly, he's looked great, especially coming off of how much last year he was injured. I've really enjoyed the fact that I think that extra endurance is definitely going to translate, I think, the biggest on the defensive end. I think the issue with on the offensive end, he kind of gets bumped off his line a lot on drives. And so if he's trying to drive an angle against a guy, once he gets that angle, he'll try to take the angle. But if the recovery's there and there's a bump and there's not a foul call, he's just now kind of like losing the advantage once he gets that first bump. And that's where, to me, it's like a pretty fundamental difference between him and like a Tyrese Maxey, who he gets compared to a lot, his former teammate at Kentucky, or even like the previous point guards the Raptors had, like a Kyle Lowry, for example. It's like those guys, if they like shift you a little bit and then drive that little angle and drive that little edge, even if they don't let you back in, not only because they're quicker, but they're stronger to like absorb that bump and still go on that line. If you have a advantage on a guy, and then you have to curve around them after the bump, now you've lost the advantage, right? And so I think for Quickley, sometimes he does lose that physicality battle a lot of the time, but I do like the process that he played here tonight. I do think it's a little bit against his nature to shoot so many threes, but he is also quite good at shooting threes. And so him going 5 of 10 from the 3-point line, I wish I could see that much more often, because it's weird, because it's not to say that the other parts of his game don't matter in terms of the attacking closeouts or, running a pick and roll. Again, he hasn't been able to do a lot of that because it's different running a pick and roll with Sandro versus running a pick and roll with Jakob. I think Jakob certainly sets the widest screens, has the biggest chance to lob, or like, just rolls to the basket, short roll, hard roll, whatever. Those are things that definitely will help Quickley. I think, Jakob helps Quickley almost more than anybody else on the roster, especially offensively. But yeah, I think just him getting comfortable and not hesitating from three. I mean, some of those were like 30-footers too that he was shooting. I don't want him to necessarily just chuck them up, but again, like he should be a little less, I guess, a little more shameless. You know what I mean? Like, don't be afraid, bro. Just shoot those threes. I like the way he played it, and again, the defensive effort, it's noticeable. Once a game, he's been getting those offensive, screens and the moving screen calls, and that's all just effort and hustle right there. So, let's go. The Yankees lose. Let's go. Okay, this one. I'm sorry here, but I have to wonder, as good as BI is, are we targeting a championship? You're telling me that Brandon Ingram is our primary scorer of the future. We weren't trying to develop and draft other scorers because he's enough. I mean, okay, yes and no. Like, obviously, is it an upgrade over the previous roster, right? Like, if you're telling me that you had an expiring Bruce Brown going into the offseason, obviously very eager to go back to Denver, and he did. If you have Kelly Olynyk on the books for another year, was that going to be a better number one option? No, right? So they upgraded the roster. It cost them a future first round pick to do it. That wasn't theirs. It's Indiana's. We'll see how good that pick is. And now that he's joined the team, and in the limited time that he's played with the team, you're like, okay, he's clearly a level better. However, I also understand this concern, because I would not also, as much as I'm excited for Brandon, not characterize him as a championship number one. Thing is, you're going to need multiple pieces. Like, if Brandon's, I think he could be a championship number 2, maybe championship number 3 even, depending on sort of what the team context looks like around him. But like, he certainly moves him closer to that goal. So like, it's not like he's too old either. He's what, like 28? How old is Brandon Ingram? He's got to be at least 28, because he's in year 10. He is 28 years old. Yeah, there you go. And just turned 28 too. Okay, so the young 28. There you go. Like, it's fine. He's in his prime. And I also think that if you rehab him to a good point and you choose, for example, I'm not saying like this is ridiculous to say this after he's played 2 preseason games, but you re-sign him, you got a chance to see him, and if it doesn't work out, the Raptors really want to tear down and want to go a different direction. I think even from a trade perspective, I think you get more than Bruce Brown and Kelly Olynyk and another team's first round pick in return if he's healthy and playing the way he's supposed to play. Yeah, that's more like it. Next one, Jacoby needs more reps on offense. You could tell he's ahead of the rest of the bench guards. Yeah, he is, but like, I don't know. What's the thing with Jacoby? So I think, okay, Jacoby really got comfortable over the course of the game, because I think the tricky thing, especially with young guys, is like they can really swing up and down. Like, I think it's the same pattern you see with Grady. Actually, Grady I thought was pretty effective today and pretty stable. But in general, you see it with young guys. Like, I thought Jamal played a terrible first half, and then second half played great. Well, not great, but really good, let's say. Jacoby, first half, was playing with the starters, so he's largely not playing with the ball in his hands and expected to catch and shoot or finish on layups. He missed a lot of those. He missed all of those, actually, in the first half. So that was not good. But then he settled in, and then in the third quarter, you saw him get in the rhythm. He had an up fake around the basket, drew the foul, actually lifted two guys with the up fake, and bought both of them, and then got the bump and the foul. Another one, he caught a catch and shoot from Jamal, who, again, Jamal was playing better, so that really helped the rest of the group. But Jamal played better, getting the paint, tossed it out to Jacoby, and the Jacoby hit the three with an and one for a 4-point play. So he settled in, and the second half looked a lot better. But I do have to say, though, like, I think with Jacoby, the key there is if he obviously he's going to be a defensive guy and he's going to pressure the ball, and those are all really, really good things. He's a little bit small to guard threes, though, so he's mostly going to be guarding point guards and shooting guards, but that's okay. Like, I don't really mind that. The thing is, and you could tell that he wants to create more off the bounce, and he wants to be a guy who can, get his own offense once in a while, which certainly if he's going to be shooting guard is going to be one of the prerequisites for his job. The thing is, is there going to be that sort of separating factor in terms of, like, he's so good on pull-up jumpers? Like, even you look at CJ McCollum tonight. CJ McCollum's playing at, like, half speed and still just pulling up for threes casually because he's such a good, like, his skill level has gone to a point where it's so high. I'm not comparing him to a 12-year vet or whatever because, like, obviously CJ's had a lot of time to work on his game. But even coming out of college, CJ was great. Even, as a rookie, CJ was great, right? So is he going to be a pull-up shooting threat largely? Because that seems to be most of what he gets. He doesn't really get to the rim off a live dribble that often. It's mostly a pull-up three or a pull-up mid-range jumper. Between the two, obviously you prefer the pull-up three, but let's master the pull-up mid-range first and then extend that range out even further. So, yeah, I mean, I certainly really like Jacoby. I think there were a lot of good things that he showed last season that makes me optimistic about him. But just in general, yeah, I think those are probably the things that he's got to start on. And it will be hard, though, because it's just going to, it's, like if you're mostly shooting jumpers, you're going to have up and down games. Like, that's just the nature of basketball. Unless you're like one of these, like, unless you're like KD or something, like if you're mostly shooting jumpers, like that's what's going to happen. You're just going to be a little more up and down. But, yeah, actually really tough half for Jacoby the first half, but he got a lot better in the second half. So I think that's the thing with young guys. They're really just going to be up and down. Let's take another question. What's Scottie's ideal position on the court anyway? I mean, if he plays like a 4, can he, I mean, this probably is asking for a lot, but can he play like Chris Webber? That style of, like, I guess he's not as big as Chris. Chris was, like, dunking on guys too, but, like, I mean, like, just like a 4, like he can handle, he can create, but he's also largely doing that from free throw line and in. Don't mind that. A couple rolls to the basket, etc. I think Jacoby's still holding back a little bit. Maybe, honestly, maybe. I think, again, I think there's a lot of games, if he's going to come in largely looking to shoot pull-up jumpers, then he's going to be cold sometimes, he's going to be hot sometimes. Like, hey, man, life is Brandon Ingram's pretty hard. That's why we praise Brandon Ingram, because it's like, this guy could do it. You know what I mean? So it's like arguably the hardest thing. Another question, slightly changed question. If RJ becomes integral to the Raptors winning, how do you think that would complicate things for Bobby / the Raptors? And money-wise, do we sign him long-term and go into luxury tax? Who goes out? I don't think the Raptors will be going to a luxury tax unless this is a team that has a chance to win the championship. So, as of right now, that is a no. And if I were to advise Bobby, which I would never do, I would also then take the chance to say, don't go on a luxury tax. This team is just not that level. It's a fair question because this team is going to have to sort of push a couple guys off the roster. Let me just pull up the Raptors salary sheet real quickly. This season, the Raptors are already slightly over the luxury tax. I'm pretty confident they'll get under it. I want to see what they do, for example, with a guy like Ochai. I think that would be a smaller move. That he's got a small salary. If they can find a way to sort of get some picks back from him, or even like a prospect that's a little bit younger than him, because he's certainly developed into a pretty reliable, decent player. He should have positive value. That you can sort of mitigate the tax this year. They will not pay the luxury tax this year, and they won't do it. They'll find a way to get around it. I think the difficult thing is if you look ahead to next season, this is without Ochai on the books because this is the last year of his contract. This is without a first round pick coming in. And this is still with RJ on the books at $29 million. The Raps still would be flirting with the luxury tax or like the like being over the tax next year as well, right? So, they would have to get creative kind of again, depending on sort of what they want to do with that. Because again, like the less flexible part of the roster is the fact that, Scottie's making, the rookie scale max, Brandon's making, between 38 and 40 million, and IQ's making 32 flat. So it's like hard to sort of massage around those. You can only have a couple more slots around that, especially now that Jakob Poeltl is already locked in for an additional number of years. By the way, Jakob Poeltl's extension, Yak is making 19.5 this year, 19.5 next year as well. It goes up to 27 per year in 27, 2028, and it stays in that range for the next 2 years after that. I think the last year is like partially guaranteed or something. But in any case, this team obviously does have some hard salaries to sort of like maneuver around. I kind of imagine it's kind of like this is what the modern like cap environment looks like. You have probably 2 slots for max guys, which are obviously being occupied by Scottie and Brandon. You have 2 slots for like solid, strong starter money, which is usually in that 30 million range. That's being taken up by Quickley and Jakob. The issue is you just don't really have a third spot for like another $30 million a year slot. Currently you do with RJ. But again, like if even after RJ's contract expires and you want to re-sign him, you probably also have to look at what did you extend Grady Dick for? What did you extend Jacoby Walter for if you chose to do that? If Ochai did stick around, what did you extend Ochai for? So it's a lot. I do think that, again, having said that, you probably, if you believe that RJ can be that like really strong starter level for you, then you probably just have to replace one of the other guys currently in those slots, right? So, and I think that's probably the bigger question. Can he get to that level where he's like definitively your third or fourth best player? Like definitively. He has an impact on winning. If he does, and he wants to stay, that's how you got to find out, because you got to basically put him in that slot in terms of if you're building out your cap. So, what else we got, man? Okay. Who's the most important bench piece this year, and why is it Grady Dick? I don't think it is Grady Dick. I think it's Sandro Mamukelashvili. I honestly, at first, I've definitely heard Bobby talk very glowingly about Sandro, and I was like, okay, all right, like I'll hear you out, but like I got to see it too. Definitely heard Darko talk glowingly about Sandro, kind of the same approach, like wait and see. Now that I've seen it, I'm like, okay, I get it. The vision, I see the vision, right? Creative, able to drive, attack closeout at the 5, which is pretty rare, stretch it out. He even hasn't hit the 3 at a high level the last 2 games, but he's still making an impact, getting to the basket. Defensively, I don't think he's like a minus. He's more of a neutral defensively. And in terms of skill level and experience coming off that bench, he's ahead of these other guys. Like I think even a game where Mamu isn't hitting his 3s, he could still be a positive. That's something I can't necessarily say about some of these other guys. Like Jacoby will be a positive with his defense, but not like a game-breaking level of like, oh my god, he's like like even like what Keyshawn George was doing for the Wizards. Keyshawn George had like 5 blocks. This is the second time he's had 5 blocks against the Raptors. Like, like it's like, okay, there's like a super high level defensively. Oh yeah, and I forgot about CMB as well. Yeah, CMB, honestly, if I had to rank it, I'd probably go in terms of who's the most important bench guys, like Sandro, CMB, and then Grady. But I also think that Grady is kind of like, if he's hot, he can change the game offensively. And that's pretty nice to have. What I want off my bench are either really dependable, I know what they're going to do game in, game out, kind of like your Patrick Pattersons in the past, of like, guys are going to come in, switch a lot on defense, rotate, move the ball. Actually, that's probably the closest we had to Sandro as a bench big. Pat was better defensively and not as skilled offensively. But like, if he can give me what Tupac gave the Raptors, like I think that would be pretty decent. But Grady has that like 6-man offensive change the game level, which I think will be pretty strong. I also think the other part in terms of guys off the bench is, can you slot in with the starters? And in that sense, I actually really like the way Sandro moved and operated. He just like, it looks seamless. Again, it looks like Sandro's played on the team for multiple years, even though this is the first time he's played with them. But like, whether he's been playing off the second unit or he's playing with the starters, like today, looked like pretty comfortable. So that's why I think I'm going to pick Sandro and then CMB. CMB is just like very exciting. I really hope he's okay. Yeah, Yeah, Grady's definitely the most important offensive player off the bench. So I think that's totally fair. And then I would go Jamal after that. And Jamal does have really good moments. I feel like Jamal is a guy that happens in flashes. Jamal has lots of flashes, and the flashes go great. Like today, I thought he had a stretch where, what did Jamal have today? Hold on, look at the notes. Jamal had a stretch, a mini run in the third quarter. He had a pick and roll feed to Mobile for a layup. He had he crossed up at the point of attack, got himself an angle, and then burst to the basket, got fouled at the rim. And then he had a pull-up three where he got fouled on. And then he set up Jacoby for a 4-point play. So that's like a really good stretch. The issue is it's inconsistency from your point guard could really throw off the whole team. Like it has almost an outsized impact on the rest of the group. What I actually been really liking is Chucky Hepburn. Chucky Hepburn has been consistently a menace on the defensive end, like forcing pressure, but like he's still like being really disruptive. Like he had two turnovers. Okay, he only had one steal. I swear this guy had like 8 deflections tonight. Like he was really, really good. And then offensively, he's been making jumpers, man. That's been really smooth. He's been making some pull-up mid-range jumpers. He made a pull-up 3 at one point. He had a great play at the end of the first quarter where he was defending Trey Johnson one-on-one. Trey Johnson is going to be a bucket in this league. Trey Johnson was an excellent scorer at Texas. That's why he was, I believe, the 6th pick this year's draft. But Chucky Hepburn just locked this guy up one-on-one. Like, literally, Trey had to, like, try twice to drive on him. Couldn't get anywhere closer than the free throw line area. Gave it up to, I think, Tristan Vukovic, who then tried to drive that lane. Chucky was able to just, like, slide over, get a hand in, poke the ball free. The ball was caught, I think, by Scottie, who threw it ahead to Chucky. Chucky had it and then saw that he had a half step on Trey Johnson at the three-point line. There was just a little bit too much separation, and he just like calmly knocked that three down. Like those were some pretty good moments. Like that stretch reminded me of like what Fred did when Fred was really good. Was just like, okay, I'm going to defend a guy bigger than me. I'm going to get my heavy hands on the ball. I'm going to cause a strip. And then going the other way, I'm going to have a momentum kind of breaking three. And towards the end of that first quarter, the Raptors were able to win that first quarter, because they finished strong. Yeah, they won 26-20 in the first quarter. And I thought Chucky's play was absolutely huge for that. So that's probably enough for a preseason game. My goodness, guys, let's all go watch the Blue Jays and have dinner with our families, ideally, if we can. Can we do a post game? What if the Jays win tonight? Honestly, I don't know about that, but I do know that we will be going live tomorrow morning. We're gonna try to do more of these like mini episodes where we sort of hit on a couple of specific topics. So we'll get Alex. Alex is actually at the game tonight, so we'll get his thoughts on the game and also just on preseason in general. But we'll do that tomorrow morning. How about that? Let's do that tomorrow, like 10:30. I think that's the slotted time that we have. But for now, let's wrap up the show. We got 3 stars from tonight's game. First star, I might give that to Chucky, man. Hey, Chucky, great stuff. Shouts to Chucky. Been hearing good things about him. Chucky has an agent who's from Toronto, and I met him like earlier this summer when we did the live event with Bobby Webster, and he was actually that night that day we were talking to Bobby. The agent actually was like, yo, the reason I'm here is because my guy was here for the workout, and you should look out for him, Chucky Hepburn. I'm like, okay, cool. But I just like put it out of my mind because I'm like, I got to do this interview and whatever. Draft process, you're focused on who's draft he's going to take with the first round pick, not necessarily what they might do later on. But then he comes on the team, and then he goes to preseason, or then he goes to summer league, and we got to interview with him and sit down. And I remember leaving summer league, and I was at the airport, and it just happened to be on the same flight as the same agent, but with Chucky. And I'm just like, talking about sort of what I thought. And even then I'm like, I don't know. Like I felt like the Raptors have a lot of point guards. Feels like it's pretty cluttered. And he didn't have a strong summer league. So I was like, he feels like he didn't come out of his shell yet. And he's like, you know what? I hear what you're saying, but like, you should really watch out for him. Like, I think that there's like, he obviously certainly really believes in him. And I'm like, oh, yeah, rightfully so. That's his agent. If anyone should believe in a player, it should be his agent. What he has shown in the preseason so far, I've already gone back and been like, you know what? My bad. I didn't see the vision at first, but I see the vision now. The steadiness, the IQ on the defensive end, having 2 guys. I mean, Chucky obviously more experienced. He actually won Defensive Player of the Year in his conference too, which is super rare, especially as a guard. Same thing that Jamal did. But like, the way he's been able to read defenses, the way he's not only he's guarding his man, but I really start to measure when a guy's smart on defense by how much they help other guys, like the smart defenders on the team, like Scottie, Colin, Jakob. Like these guys are like, not only are they guarding their guy, but they're guarding the rest of the guys. Like they're helping. You're seeing Chucky already make great help rotations. And, that's something to me that's really standing out. So almost reminding me of sort of how Jamal started last year in preseason. So I think they got something good here in Chucky, man. And he's getting the first star for me. 12 points, 4 of 6 shooting, 3 of 4 from 3. Second star, I'll give it to IQ. Yeah, I'll give it to IQ. I really like the way he played tonight. I wouldn't mind more of these. Again, I would love to see him finish a little stronger around the basket. But 18 points in 24 minutes, 6 of 16 shooting, 5 of 10 from 3, got hot for a stretch there, 3 rebounds, 3 assists. Like it's weird because he's kind of like by definition been asked to play more 2 guard than he is as a point guard, but I thought he did a pretty good job. And then your third star, with all the conversation about him, how can you give it to anyone else? I'm gonna give it to Scottie Barnes, man. I mean, all love to Olivier Sarr for making a layup, but like I think Scottie's defensive effort, what he did in that first half, he just changed the energy of the game. Raptors were really coming out lackadaisical. They were going basket for basket with the Wizards. Wizards weren't even playing well either. I think this is like their first preseason game. How are the Raptors playing 4 preseason games and this is their first one? But when he came back in the second half shift, Scottie was on it. Defensively, I'm telling you, he made a bunch of plays, got a bunch of rebounds, and just got the Raptors' pace to be at the level that they should be at. So that's what I want out of the leader. Going back to what Bobby said, his energy, his defense, his leadership, his rebounding, guy did all those things. 4-4 in terms of what he needed to do today. Just offensively, continues to be confusing, but that's a lot of his career. So 10 points, 12 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 steals in 22 minutes was a game high plus 22. I'll take that. I will take that. So, Gerald Henderson Award winner for who randomly torched the Raps. I mean, I feel like you gotta give that to, Marvin Bagley, even with all that scoring, still had 10 points. Okay, never mind. Oh, man. Keyshawn George, okay, missed a bunch of shots. Yeah, he did, but oh, man. Wizards, man. Is this their whole team? This I feel like no one really sat for them, right? Yeah. They're still the Wizards. I know there's been a lot of hype, but they're still the Wizards. Let's give it to Cam Whitmore. 10 points, some energy off the bench. Always like Cam. That's a good bench player for me in terms of just like he can change the game a little bit, but you don't have to depend on him. Let's give Cam Whitmore wow, he's a minus 27? What the hell? Okay, all right. Wow, it is hard, man. Damn. Let's give it to CJ McCollum. Actually, no. Fundamentally, for writing a bad CBA, I can't give it to CJ McCollum. Oh, let's give it to Will Riley. 2 free throws at the end. Clutch free throws by Will Riley. Read the story about Will Riley. By Lee Ben Osmond, friend of the program at the Toronto Star. Lee Ben was able to travel with Will and his family to the NBA draft and wrote a really good story about Will. So shouts to Will Riley. Still very fresh-faced. He should be going into his second year of undergrad. Instead, he's now in the NBA and knocked down 2 free throws, which momentarily looked like it won the game for the Washington Wizards, but it didn't. And that's it. So thanks all for listening. Appreciate everybody. Let's go Blue Jays and have a happy long weekend, no matter how you choose to celebrate. Thanks.